This video is brought to you by Tears of Themis. Valentine's Day. A time of love, romance, and an opportunity to use this commercialized holiday to market a dress only vaguely related to its theme. See, for me, Valentine's Day is #1, a friend holiday, a chance to order the love boat for 2 with my bestie and share a relaxing evening at my favorite sushi restaurant. And #2, more importantly, a chance to slay outfit-wise on all cylinders. So today we are making a dress that I just very selfishly want, and the color red is really the only thing loosely connecting it to this vapid holiday. So what are we thinking for design? Well, all this really started because of that Spider-Man dress, and not that one, that one. See, I originally wanted it to be a shorter, more casual dress, and I saved all of these dresses to my Pinterest for that purpose. But I ended up going hard and making a full gown instead, but I still really wanted one of these. And I'm an adult woman, so I can just make one. So I designed 2 simple dress options, one more of a bodycon dress and one with more of a fluffy A-line, and asked my patrons which one they preferred. They chose this one, which is nice because that's the one I wanted to make anyways. Congratulations, patrons. You have good taste. So let's get to work patterning and cutting this thing. But first, does no one love you? Are you incapable of love? Are you afraid of being all alone on this shallow, emotionally manipulative holiday? All valid concerns, but none of that matters because we have technology. Which means we also have this video sponsor, Tears of Themis. Tears of Themis is Hoyoverse's first game of romance and wits. It is a free-to-play mystery romance game set in a law firm in the radiant and technologically advanced city of Stellis, where you play as an enthusiastic young attorney with a taste for mystery solving, justice, and beautiful men. You'll meet lots of colorful characters along your mystery solving escapades, but none quite like the 4 men attempting to steal your heart: Luke Pierce, Artem Wing, Vin Richter, and Marius von Hagen. Along your adventures, you can develop a love story with each of these dashing, unique leads, depending on your personality preference. And Tears of Themis is currently hosting a special Valentine's Day event called Butterfly Kisses, in which they are dropping stunning new MR cards of each of these boys, and that event is available as of today, February 14th, 2023. And in honor of said event, I'm really excited to draw my favorite character, which is Marius, and you're gonna see some of that process while I tell you about the gameplay. In the main story, there's a string of mysterious incidents occurring in Stellis City, and it's your job to weave together the evidence and find the truth. Advanced technology has given Stellis its radiant neon lights, but modernity has also cast a shadow over the people of Stellis. Lately, there's been an abnormal increase in incidents and odd behavior amongst the citizens that threaten the social security of Stellis, and even if they're reported, these incidents are often drowned out in bureaucracy and red tape. But a cryptic ally, codename X, has taken notice and is beginning to piece together the cases to aid your investigation. As more pieces of the puzzle are brought into the open before Lady Justice, you'll slowly uncover the truth behind the mysterious incidents threatening Stellis City. Every episode is a separate story, but all of the stories eventually interconnect as you slowly uncover the truth behind the mystery. The gameplay focuses on a detective adventure. You can collect evidence, reveal hidden details via interrogation of NPCs and inspection, and gather physical evidence from the crime scene in actual 3D space. From there, you use your wits to carefully cross-examine and connect clues to uncover the truth and exact justice in a swift court trial. You'll also experience blossoming romance with characters you'll meet along the way. You can create cherished memories with the 4 unique male leads through exciting stories, affection-building games, messages, and video calls, and tender moments that can also unlock new story options. Plus, you can experience all of this with exquisite dynamic illustrations and immersive voice acting that feels straight out of your favorite romance anime.
君が守りたいものを守り、譲れないものは譲るな。
And since the game is developed by Hoyoverse, the same creators as Genshin Impact, the quality of the gameplay and the visuals are outstanding and definitely worth a try. And if you need any more convincing, here's a bit more of that Marius illustration process. I really enjoy drawing him. He is a fine art/art history buff with purple eyes and dark hair, so he's a cutie. And as a nod to his characterization, I drew him painting in a dreamy garden, and that ended up looking like this. Aren't you just getting sucked into that magnetic gaze? So if you'd like to engage in a little fictional romance this heart-shaped box of chocolate season, you can download Tears of Themis and participate in the special Butterfly Kisses Valentine's Day event for free at the link in my description. And you can also find links to all of the official Tears of Themis social media accounts for the latest news and game updates. Thank you so much to Tears of Themis and Hoyoverse for sponsoring this video. Now let's get started. It is day 1, and welcome to the sewing room. I'm so excited! And if this doesn't turn out good, I will cry, most likely, because I do want this to work. Shut up! Also, the executive producer decided to pretty much, as soon as I set it down, sit upon mine fabric, so... Is this not the cutest little loaf? She's prepping my fabric by getting her tiny little hairs all over it. Adorable. Are you purring now? She is. Okay, so for this, the pattern is pretty straightforward. Bustier dress, circle skirt. I don't think the sleeves are gonna be too hard, but hey, famous last words. I've never done a sleeve that's long and poofy. I imagine it's very similar to a sleeve that is short and poofy, but I also don't know. I'm gonna have to look up the pattern online and then maybe do a mock-up, figure that out. It's been a minute since we've seen mock-up Kira here, but she might make a guest appearance on this week's episode for the sake of this actually coming out good. But the rest of it should be easy, straightforward, except for one little thing. So last week I made some like vampiric corset kind of things, and they turned out really good, except the bustier thing had like a lot of weird gaping in the cups, and as cute as the rest of it is, it fits so well. The cups just are not it, which is like the majority of the point of a bustier. That is amateur behavior for me. I am ashamed of myself. So I already have a pattern for that bustier. So like the waist torso section, mostly figured out. For the cups, I'm going to redraft some cups for the bustier and maybe do a little bit of tweaking, but I'm not gonna do it the difficult way. No, we don't do that. We're gonna do it the easy way. I'm gonna cover a bra that fits me well in saran wrap and duct tape, because why wouldn't I do that? I swear, if you're here because you're trying to eat my cord, look, we've talked about this. So, like I said, I began by covering a well-fitting bra in masking tape, and yes, it is a cute bra. Thank you for saying so. Once I had a basic little shape drawn out, I backed the pieces with newspaper, which looked like this, and then it was on to drafting the circle skirt, which is the easiest thing ever, and the reasons why I'm glad my patrons picked this design. So to do that, you just take a waist measurement, then take a length measurement, then do a little math wizardry with baked goods to find the diameter, and then you fold the fabric in fourths and mark the waist radius and the skirt length, and I know no one cares about math, so here's me cutting and suddenly a skirt. For some added fanciness, I just laid that piece over some sheer crimson fabric to get an extra skirt layer and cut her out, and bam! That's it. Brilliant. Then it was sleeve time, which I kind of overcomplicated by adding some weird caps, and that ended up being unnecessary, but the actual shape was kind of just a rectangle. Also, I did do a mock-up for once. Anyways, I cut the final sleeves out of that same sheer crimson fabric, and then I traced all of my main bodice pieces from that bustier pattern I made and cut them out. Observe as I neglect to cut them on the bias, which is a near fatal error, but we'll come back around to that. I did cut some canvas on the bias though, which I kinda used, and spoilers, this dress turned out, shall we say, possessing a lot of unique character. Speaking of which, I also cut some craft foam for the cups and assembled them in the only way a cosplayer would know how, with barge cement. These turned out a little weird, which should come as no surprise to the educated folk among you. I probably should have used a heavier foam, but it's fine. I now have everything cut out, so I will see you guys tomorrow to actually get started on construction. It is day 2. Oh my gosh, here comes the producer. Hey, it's like the second that I take this thing out, she's here. So last night I did like cutting of basically everything except for the lining layer for the bodice. Still have to do that. So I did that. Also forgetting to cut on the bias. There is a reason why the end product of this dress looks the way it does. But other than that, the primary goal for today is to work on the bodice and get it at the point where it's mostly constructed. Oh, hey, stop. Oh my god. I find myself gravitating towards that look here recently because it's okay. Stop! I think the boned look is cool. I think it's gonna work well for this garment, so that's what we're gonna do. I don't anticipate the skirt or the little sleeve things being, oh my god. Okay, well, update, Kira was clearly having a difficult time getting that point across. Hey, hi. I hate to ask, but just real quick, thank you, I appreciate that. So let's just get into sewing this thing. First, I pinned all of my canvas pieces together and sewed them up, which sort of ended up being a pointless step, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But once I had that, I also pinned up all of my outer fabric layers and all of my lining fabric layers, with, of course, the watchful assistance of the executive producer. And upon pinning completion, this is real time by the way, I stitched up the first layer, then the second layer, and for your viewing consideration, I'll take this time to provide you with some buttery footage. I am never gonna get sick of this lens. Next, I repeated those pinning and stitching steps for the bustier cups and took to attaching those to the foam, which commenced by giving all the seams for the bodice pieces a quick press with my brand new iron to, you know, appease the sewing iron gods. And if you're wondering what happened to my old iron, I was chaotic and I broke it. Anyways, to cover the cups in fabric, I just folded the edges of the outer layer over the foam, top stitched around the edges to sew that in place, and then folded the edges of the lining in the same way to sew that in place. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to do it, but it seemed to work well enough, and also, when have I ever done things the correct way on this channel? Hello! Basically what I'm on now is just structuring the bodice. I gotta add bones to it and then put the cups in place and sew it up. And once that's done, I will have basically the makings of a dress. I just have to like assemble everything else from there, so it's going pretty smoothly. I hope it stays that way. This thing. I just cut a bunch of 1/2 inch-ish wide strips of my lining fabric to the length of each seam, pinned them into place on the outside on the seam, and top stitched them down. Then I top stitched about 1 presser foot over in width to create the actual boning channel. Those channels looked like this. And from there I cut a bunch of zip ties to length and slid about 2 into each of the channels. And this is what it was looking like so far, which is actually pretty decent. Okay, so now all the individual structure is done, so I'm just gonna begin assembling all of the individual parts of the bodice. So, this footage kinda sucks, but to connect these, I pinned the outer and lining layers right sides together, sewed that seam all along the top, and flipped it back right side out. Then I struggled to figure out how to pin the cups on there and make it okay mostly off camera, so enjoy some scenic sunset footage while I do that. This is what I settled on. She's a little messed up again, because it wasn't bias cut, and because I didn't really cut my lining pieces to size. There's numerous problems happening here, but we accept mediocrity, and we move on. I just top stitched those bustier cups down into place, and then it was time to finish that bottom edge. So the construction of this is honestly pretty weird, so I'm going to explain sort of what I'm doing on the inside of this. So this is the inside, here is the outside, and I'm just like finishing this bottom edge. That way I can add the like skirt portion in. And to give this a little bit more structure, I'm pinning some bias tape along the inside here because I didn't add the canvas pieces into all of this, just some of it because, I don't know, it didn't quite fit, and I think that this works just a little bit better. But I'm adding in the bias tape and then sewing all of this down, and you know, this isn't like proper or anything, but it should more or less get the job done so that I could add in the skirt part. So once that was all pinned into place as cleanly as it could be, I stitched that down, making sure to avoid all of the zip tie bones. And speaking of bones, there's some now, which means it's also time for this week's unsolicited The Last of Us review. Spoilers for The Last of Us TV show and game. I shaved off part of my eyebrow for this. This isn't getting out of hand. I don't know what you're talking about. So this started out as a joke, but we're kind of doing actual reviews now. And I can do that in a sewing video because this is my channel. Shut up! Episode 3 is a little far off at this point, but I loved it. In the beginning, we get some lootin' and scootin'. Ellie finds an old Mortal Kombat game, some tampons, which, hell yeah, relatable, and an infected in the basement. I think they're taking a really interesting angle with Ellie in the show. In episode 4, she said it wasn't her first time killing or being violent, and I don't think she was talking about killing the stalker. I think killing the stalker was maybe a revenge kill for something. Anyways, flower theory confirmed by Joel, and Ellie learns about governmental genocide, which leads us to Bill and Frank. Ron Swanson does the apocalypse, and this time he's gay. I love how Frank just immediately figures him out. He's like, here is the wine that pairs perfectly with the hair. I know I don't seem the type, and Frank is just like, oh, you do. You do. I also love how Bill's posture and demeanor just completely changes around Frank. Like, he seems very confident, and then around Frank, he's just... It was just a great piece of physical acting from Nick. This song is so sad, but I love how they subvert it by giving Bill and Frank a life together for a long, long time. I love how we just immediately flash forward to a lover's quarrel. Also loved seeing Tess again, my beloved. Their little moments made me smile. This scene is both adorable and relatable. Frank can paint like a legend. Is there anything this man can't do? Is there anything Bill can't do? But the end for these characters didn't even make me cry because the game is so much sadder. Just kidding. I rewatched this episode before recording this and sobbed the entire time. I mean, what else can you ask for in the apocalypse? Probably like best case scenario. I mean, modern medicine would be nice so that we don't have to do that. Like doctors would be convenient. Oh, we're shooting those now? I also really like how instead of turning Bill into a negative example of what Joel can turn into, they turned him into a positive one. Like in the game, it's like this could be Joel if he refuses to let people in. He could be alone, bitter, and jaded. But then they completely flip it in the show and Bill encourages Joel to connect to people and embrace his role as a protector. The utter gut punch that is the note mentioning Tess is just... Ow. Ow. It kind of really leaves things up in the air at the end of this episode because Joel never fully embraced Tess and now she's gone. So it makes you wonder, is he going to take Bill's advice and actually embrace Ellie, or is he going to end up more like Game Bill? You can really tell Joel is instinctively trying to disconnect here, so he just lays down the law, and Ellie being Ellie just has to have the last word by not repeating exactly what he says. And in the car, Joel buckles her seatbelt and she acts like she's in a spaceship, which means this is basically the beginning of the end. Sorry, Joel, you're a dad now. Anyways, right, sewing a dress. To finish up the bodice, I cut a few pieces of canvas to reinforce the backmost panels where the lacing is gonna go, and to finish those, I just folded the edges in, pinned, and stitched them down. Then it was time for a little bit of problem solving. You see, I kind of botched the bottom of this. Some of this in here is like pretty messy. I need to go back in and do a little bit more work on the bodice. And I didn't really cut the canvas to size. We're on a bit of a rushed schedule this week. It's turning out okay, but like not ideal. So basically, instead, what I think I'm gonna do is just take that whole bottom that I just finished up, rip it open, and then just try to install the skirt actually inside the bodice and make them all one piece, because I think that's just gonna be simpler and easier and give me a little bit less heartache. I need to be decisive with this and make it as good as I can make it within the amount of time that I actually have. And if it's imperfect, for once, we're just gonna deal with it and perhaps do some alterations later on. What a radical concept. Okay. To simplify things a lot, I just cut the bottom edge back open. I was originally gonna top stitch the skirt on, but instead I opted to sew the skirt between the lining pieces to get that nice smooth edge. And to fix the puckering as best I could, I trimmed and realigned the canvas that was inside there, making it all messy, which was more or less successful. So then I repinned that skirt into place between my lining pieces and sewed that baby up. That came out imperfect and I decided to ignore my problems. She is now attached and it looks better than it looked before. Now I am just going to French seam the back of the skirt. To French seam. French seam. French seam. French seam. I pinned wrong sides together, sewed, then we flip it inside out, and encase our first seam with another seam, then flip it again, and then the seam looks all nice on both sides. It's like magic, only not at all. To finish up the skirt, I added some loops for lacing so I can get it over my hips and still fasten it. And finally, now it's time for sleeves. There she is. Let's figure this out. Let's figure it out. We're going for this disconnected off the shoulder style, which is super easy, and for some reason I forgot how easy it was and lamented for several minutes about how hard it might be. But ignore her. I just cut little strips of elastic to be a little shorter than both my wrist and bicep, which the producer tried to promptly steal. This is not very helpful. Stop trying to take my elastic. Hey, that's not for you. That's not for you. I need that. Can we please stop? Okay, now this smells like tuna. That's disgusting. And to gather down the top and bottom of the sleeves, I just stretched the elastic out to the width of the sleeves and sewed in a straight zigzag along the elastic, gathering as needed, which makes a nice little stretchy gather. I did that on the top and the bottom of both sleeves, and to finish off the sleeves, I gave each of them another quick French seam, which looks especially pleasing on sheer fabrics. Buttery. And then we had sleeves. I am so excited. We now have some very poofy sleeves. Okay, so the only thing we have left is grommet time! To install my lacing, I just marked each hole and pierced through them with my awl. And now that I have a proper grommet setter, installing my grommets actually went really smoothly with little to no hammering of my thumbs. Ow. I also added some grommets to the side of the cups to add a bit more security to the bust area. And with that, okay, it's not perfect, but I'm kind of shocked that it came out as well as it did. I'm kind of just happy that I have a wearable garment by the end that actually fits and stays on my body, and I actually love it. So, let's see what this garment looks like. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a lighter video today, but I had a good time and I also got a dress that I really like out of it. Don't forget to check out this video's sponsor, Tears of Themis. Thank you so much for watching, but of course, the most loving of thank yous goes to my patrons, especially my executive producers. Sable Skies, The Cat's Bark, Alwyn Hayes, Thea Maia, Ruled by Pluto, Agent Sketchy, Wolven_Arts, Corvid Dome, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, In the Galaxy, Cleos, Meeks Hunter, Megan Penland, Sushi McNushi, Satoni, Mel W, Jim Jiminy, India Gloom, Hypnos, Reflings, Katie, Michael Twycross, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, Panda Pie 365, Bobo McFo, Will Schmidt, and Bean the Bread. If you would like to become a patron and gain access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content on my videos, the link will be in the description. Why do they have to chug the wine? Did you put it in both? When they get to Bill and Frank's, are they just both going to be dead? I'm about as good as Elliot's too.